Hearing.
This is the budget hearing. I'm going to call this budget hearing to order with 5 members present.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, if you favor, vote. Raise your hand. Okay. Budget review, 3.01. As soon as he gets here, Dr. Kraus, it's time for you to review the budget.
It's time for me to review the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
We took care of all the preliminaries. It's a nice budget, by the way, Dr. Kraus.
Yes, it is. a good
It's lovely.
budget. What you see there is we will need to republish on our special ed and then the virtual. The numbers are all there. We just need to make sure that we have our budget high enough so that we can use the funds that came in from those categories without having to dip out of general fund. So there's actually no more money being spent. It's just simply that we can spend it out of the categories from whence it came. Any questions on the numbers themselves?
How much of an increase are those two budgets to be able to spend?
Terry, can you tell us right off the top of your head?
Virtual funds about 18,000, 18,800, and special education is about 250, well, no, about 150,000.
Wow.
And I honestly, special education, I'm really hoping that we don't spend any more than what we originally published, but it's going to be mighty close. And
So you need the room just in
we
case.
just need the room just in case.
Right, and again, it's to protect the general fund so that we can spend it out of the funds that it came. We had a huge increase in our transportation costs, and special ed is the reason for that. We may need that leeway.
Well, and you think about how many kids you have to transport towards the same geographic area, but you're in separate vehicles, and sometimes with 2 staff members in the car, so.
And it is 2 staff members and 2 cars.
Okay.
Any other questions from anyone?
Any discussions from out there?
Is there any further discussion, any questions? Going once?
And we don't act on this until the regular
regular
meeting? Yeah, okay.
This is just your listening time, Bill.
I would, what, I'm sorry, what?
Exactly.
No, I'm with you.
Are there any questions from anybody out there?
Can you scroll down to see the bottom of
I'll keep scrolling so everybody can see all that. Any other questions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, not hearing any other question, I would move to adjourn the budget hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Dennis, second by Bill to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, it looks like it's 7 o'clock by the clock on the wall. We have 7 members present. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by David, seconded by Bill to approve the agenda and the consent agenda. All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
8 minutes, you walked in right at the end of it.
Moving on to section 4.01. Any comments from the public?
No.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Reports and presentations. We're going to start with Ginger. Hi, Ginger.
I have 2 items to present to the board tonight. The first being some repair work on the middle school commons bleachers. Both sets of those have issues where they won't open up without someone pushing on them while you're running the controller. I put out a request for bids on repairs to that, and I have the bids listed from $11,000 down to the $5,920. I feel like any of the three would be capable of doing what needs to be done, so I would recommend going with the cheapest one if that would be able to be approved.
Have you worked with any of them before, Ginger?
Heartland Seating and Bleacher Solutions have both done work for us. And pretty much when I talked to each one of them when they came out, we went through what they were supposed to do to fix them, and they all pretty much, I mean, the Bleacher Company, they pretty much do the same thing, so.
Okay.
Is there any ideas, the difference between 11,000 and 5,000?
They have the same scope of work. I know that Heartland did some work for us over at the high school. I believe that was last summer or the summer before. I don't know if they were under the assumption that they were gonna just get the job, and so we got a higher price, but I actually listed everything out, what we wanted done in the RFP, item by item, and each one of them bid, each item, so.
So it was a very specific RFP then?
Mhm.
Good.
All right. Any other questions for Ginger? This is in the reports and presentations section because she hasn't had a chance to come present to us before. If we wanted to make a motion to approve it so they could get it scheduled, that would be a good thing.
I would so move
All right.
to approve the Carroll Seating Company bid.
I would second that.
Okay, moved by Bill and seconded by Brian. Any further discussion?
Just a quick question to Dr. Kraus. I'm assuming this is coming out of capital outlay, this expenditure?
Yes,
And this is something that we've kind of planned for?
we've talked about it,
Okay, so we're okay with it then?
right. Yeah, it's something that we expected. I mean, obviously, if your bleachers don't move, you gotta fix them.
Okay.
Okay. All right, further discussion?
The other item that I'm bringing to the board is.
Wait, Ginger.
Ginger, they got it.
We got a motion on the floor.
Okay, sorry.
Do you
Aye.
have- Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, 7-0. Thanks, Ginger. Next one?
Okay. Custodial equipment purchases. In the past, we sat down and made a year-by-year schedule of custodial equipment replacement. The last time that we were able to replace any of our equipment was in 2008. And I am starting to have issues with the equipment, having to make, larger and larger repairs. I actually have some of my equipment that is right on the edge of breaking, beyond repair. And so I was proposing to you guys tonight if you would take a look at the equipment on this list. Basically, everything on here is a replacement. It's not just an addition.
Okay.
I would like to comment on this just a little bit. As Ginger said, 2008 was when we last replaced any of our equipment. When we started getting the huge budget cuts in 2009, that was one of the things that was non-kid. So we said, okay, let's not do anything, and we just have never put that back in. They had a 5-year replacement schedule, and once we get back to where we need to be, that's what we would do again, is replace gradually over time. But we're in a kind of a crucial situation where the vast majority of that could break down. And we really feel like our people do a great job of keeping the buildings looking nice, but if they don't have this equipment, they'll be unable to do that.
I just want to know what a restroom cleaning machine is.
There you go.
A Kivak,
Yeah.
it's similar to a power washer and a wet vac. And you go in and you spray chemical down all over the bathroom from the walls
Hose
down.
everything down.
Uh-huh. And then you suck the water all up, and it has a blow-dry hose that you can blow everything off so you don't leave water spots. It's just hands-free cleaning for the restrooms.
I wish I'd had that when my kids were younger. But I didn't, especially the boys. I can
Sounds to
tell
me
you.
like something I could get in trouble with.
Doesn't do well
Ginger,
on sheet rock.
Out of the list of
It doesn't.
equipment, is there,
Shoot.
are there things here that are an absolute you must have? Because, like you said, you have something that's on the verge of breaking down already.
We
Those
have,
are things that you can do without maybe for another year.
yeah, we actually have 2 Kivaks that were purchased around 2006, and one of them is, I mean, we're babying it along to try to get through the year. The other one is having the similar issues, the pumps are going out of them.
Sure.
We, keep trying to, there's really nothing we can do
Well, I'm not-
mechanically.
Out of that entire list of equipment you've got, is there anything that you would say takes precedence over all those? It sounds like the Kayavacs you want
Yeah.
to be a precedence.
I put them in order
Okay,
from A down.
okay.
All right. Other questions for Ginger? Again, these are things that she probably needs to get moving onward with purchasing, if we're all right with it.
Madam President, I'd move to purchase the custodial equipment as presented so we can keep our schools clean.
Second.
All right. Motion by Dennis, seconded by David to approve the equipment as listed. Any further discussion?
How about, do we have room, or do we have this in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Ginger, one of the things that we haven't been able to say to you because you haven't been here before is we appreciate how much work you've done since Richard has been out.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Richard has been having a lot of health issues, and we're very thankful that you've taken it on as a big challenge as it is, and you've done a great job with getting bids and keeping everything going, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, section 5.03, Andy Price.
Ginger's gonna cost us a lot less than Andy will.
I can't believe we didn't make you do that tonight.
Okay, I have for us just a discussion item, and this is just kind of a tentative timeline. I wanted to get sort of your opinions and your discussion on where we want to move forward in a one-to-one initiative. As you know, our high school wants to move forward with a one-to-one initiative. The timing of it right now, with no superintendent and money and Windows 8 just coming out, this is kind of the proposal that Dr. Cobbs, Dr. Kraus, and I have agreed on to propose to you for a discussion. So, of course, today we're just going to kind of discuss it. Friday, there's an in-service. I'd kind of like to be able to tell the teachers what our plans are, which way we're moving, make sure they're on board with it and get their opinions and so on and so forth. And then if everything goes as proposed, I would like to be able to come back the 13th with quotes to order enough tablets for the teachers only, to get the teachers to have tablets a year ahead of the students. Several reasons for this. One is so that they're familiar with it and they're ready for it, and they can learn to do things more digital, do less printing, use LMS like My Big Campus to start presenting material to the kids. And then also on the second page of that document, to start being able to answer a lot of unknowns and a lot of questions that really haven't been answered, that need to be answered before you put a device in the hands of every kid in a one-to-one scenario. How are we going to budget it? Are we going to try to do the entire student body in 1 year and do financing? Are we going to try to purchase insurance? On and on with tons of different questions. So I know you have that in front of you. I don't want to just read the whole thing to you. Are there questions that you have or discussion items that we need to talk about?
I'm going to ask you to go through the Windows 8 option, the tablets.
Okay, so the reason we're kind of on board with Windows 8 now rather than an iPad, they did pilot the iPads, several reasons, but probably the biggest reason is we probably have somewhere around 250 to 300 desktops, student desktops, not counting the teachers' desktops at the high school. If we go with an iPad device, we're going to have to maintain those desktops because there's too many limitations from the iPad. They can't do state testing, they can't do Microsoft Office, they can't do our Adobe suite that some of our classes are using. So now you're talking about a one-to-one. If 650 kids have a device, and then you still have 300 or 400 desktops in the building that you need to maintain. Those desktops are due to be replaced summer of 2015. So it would be really hard to afford to keep replacing desktops cycle and give a kid a device. So with the Windows 8 device, we can put Office on it. We can put the Adobe software on it. They can do state testing. They can do map testing. They can basically do everything that they can do with a Windows 7 device. The newer operating system kind of just gives you some of the touchscreen features, gives you an app store, some extra things like that. You can print, you can access your network, you can access your H drive, all exactly the same as they're used to. So that's probably the biggest reason is,
So in other words, you're eliminating the desktops and laptops and going straight to iPad or to a
yeah,
tablet.
it doesn't make sense to me. If 650 kids have a device, every teacher has a device, every teacher has a desktop, you're going to still maintain those other 300 desktops? I mean, you would literally have, a 2 device per 1 kid ratio in your, which sounds great, but a little bit of an overkill. So if every kid already has a device, if that device can do everything they need it to do, now you can eliminate. In one case, you actually can pull computers out of a lab. You're going to save tons of electricity because you're going to save switch ports and replacing switches and all that type of gear. So,
If I could interrupt, the other thing that it does, it lessens the gap of students who have to have internet access at home and those who don't. Windows 8 tablet will allow us to have kids be able to move things through their desktops where if they don't have internet access or wireless access port at home, they can still access everything that we'll need them to do. And then when they get back to school, they just hook back onto the network, shove all that stuff off to us. Whereas an iPad, they don't have access to move anything around on their desktop space.
and he's talking about files the teachers might present to the students, a video. The teacher can put it in a folder on the network. The student that knows that they have a slow or no internet connection at home can drag and drop that stuff to his desk, to his tablet, his or her tablet, and have access to it at home.
They can't do that with the iPads now.
It's pretty difficult. Yeah, there's apps and there's, then that's the other thing too that you eliminate is, cost-wise, this tablet, and they've come down quite a bit. And when I told them we're going to buy 700 of them, they came down quite a bit more. And they're going to give us that price even though we're only buying 55 or 60. They're going to give us the price as if we're buying 700. But they've came down. The list price is $680, and they're going to sell them to us for $540.
Oh, that's real reasonable.
Yeah, and then you're going to have some sort of a case, which is going to probably be another $40. So you're looking at $680 versus an iPad. If you go with the iPad 2, kind of the middle of the road education iPad with a case is going to be about $430. So there is a gap there, but with that iPad, you're going to continue to replace desktops. You're going to have to buy apps, because you keep looking. There's a lot of free apps, but there's some apps that need to be bought in order to be able to do the things that you can already do with the Windows. And we're hearing a lot of, well, I'm going to need Office, I'm going to need a keyboard. With these, there's a USB port, so you can get a case similar to this one. The student could stand it up on their desk, has a USB port, and we're going to have tons of USB keyboards laying around, so each teacher could keep a box of keyboards in their room if they needed to do traditional typing. Just plug that in, sit at their desk, and they pretty much have their full thing. Now you would use the touch screen as your mouse.
Which one is that?
This is the Lenovo Tablet 2. And the reason that we like this one, not only did they come down pretty good in price, it's the only one that has a stylus built into it. So not only is it touchscreen, but you can also, and I mean, you can write and it can recognize what you're writing, convert it to text. And let me pass this down where you guys can see what it looks like.
Okay, that begs the next question. What's going to happen to the iPads that have been bought?
So we bought about 50 iPads for the students at the high school. What I would like to propose us do is to move those down to the middle school and elementary and use them in a cart scenario, reuse some of our carts. I mean, the iPads do have a purpose, but if the purpose is to replace your full computer, I just don't think it can do that.
Whereas you think these can?
That's the intent. If it can't, if we had to purchase both those and computers, that doesn't make sense. I wouldn't recommend moving forward with these if we don't think they can replace the computer. I think it can at this point, but I think there's still some more testing that needs to be done. The teachers need to have it in their hands. They need to make sure they can do everything. And there's some exceptions, for example, at C-Tech, where we bought the iMacs and doing graphic design. We're going to stick with that plan. AutoCAD, you're not going to be able to run AutoCAD on something like that. So I kind of look at it as the programs at CTEC are going to still require, a standalone computer for the things that they're doing, the more advanced and CTEC level things. But in the high school itself, I would like to think that we can replace all of those desktop computers with something like this. And you get a full classroom back too, because we have one classroom that is just a lab just basically for testing, I believe, mostly. Laptops, carts are due to be replaced this summer. I would propose that we not do that. Save that money, use some of that money towards the teacher's device, and then save some of that for next year.
For the rollout.
Well, that brings out the purchasing plan. Did you want to bring that up, or is that
Yeah,
just?
so on the purchasing plan, I don't,
Before we jump, let's go ahead and
Okay.
talk about
Oh, sorry.
okay.
Looking here, the recommendation in your timeline on the questions regarding deployment, we're looking at the fact that we're,
Go up to
in
the
the
top,
fall of
Amy.
13, looking at assembling a committee over the summer with our new superintendent and work through this through a planning process to then do a 14-15
Yeah,
implementation.
and I just came up with, if you, on the bulleted part on that second page, those are just questions that I came up with off the top of my head that people have presented to me when we've had our tech committees, and I don't think it's fair for one person to try to answer those questions.
We need to
And I
discuss.
think a small committee of high school teachers, and, find out what other schools are doing in certain situations, and, regarding insurance. Some schools are buying insurance for the device. Some schools are buying extras and insuring themselves and charging the kid insurance. And there's a whole lot of what ifs. What if a special ed student maybe can't use that device? What if a parent refuses to let their kid be responsible for it? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Well, I'm sure someone's already blazed that trail.
Yeah, and a lot of other schools have these same questions. Windows 8 is so new that a lot of schools are saying, hey, is anybody going to do a Windows 8 one-to-one device? Because everybody's interested in doing it, but it literally just came out, so nobody's currently doing Windows 8 device. Now people are doing one-to-one with either a Windows laptop or a lot of iPad one-to-ones.
But it does make sense if we're going to look at trying to streamline our testing capabilities and the office tools. The tablet with Windows 8 seems to be the best solution.
It's the most, long-range,
in the
most
long run
cost-effective.
cost.
Okay.
And there's the other unknown is, I don't know if we can get 4 years. My goal was to try to get 4 years out of that device. A lot of people said that's stretching it. You'll be lucky to get 3. If we're going to pick them up every summer, or at least I would propose that. So at least that's 3 months a year or 2.5 months a year that they're not being used. But you might not get 4. It's kind of a commitment that once you go down this road of one-to-one, you're not committing to it once. You're committing to it for good, because those devices are going to have to be replaced every year or every 4 years, depending on if you finance or.
So are you researching these questions, or will you, with the committee, will you?
I would be happy to be part of it. I just don't think one person
No, I don't
can
either.
answer all those. But I think those are just some questions. I think if you put a committee together or a group full of teachers right now, I bet you could double that number of questions of how would you do this and how would you do that. But yeah, I think I'd be happy to lead a committee or be part of a committee. But I think that committee needs to be high school teachers that are going to actually be doing it. We have a tech committee, but there's only one high school teacher on it that has been able to contribute to the research so far.
And those that are doing the one-on-one right now with the iPads, how do they feel about next year switching to the tablet?
Well, first of all, those teachers wouldn't be doing it at all next year. They would go, that was just a pilot. They would be going back to normal because we wouldn't have, you mean another year from now? Because they wouldn't have a device for students next year.
Right.
Okay.
So another year from now, so they would just, they knew it was a pilot and they'd be going back to how they were doing it, but.
To answer your question, though, Brian, I'm fine with it. They don't really care what type of tablet that we use. It's simply about having the technology in the hands of our kids. So what we would do with a Windows 8 versus an iPad in any of the classes that we've piloted this program with, the options and the expectations of the tablet itself are really non-existent when you look at what one can do versus the other in that setting. The real difference comes from what we do from a system standpoint within our building. We can utilize a Windows 8 that instead of, or think about what we do as a school, if we can test every sophomore on the same day, because everybody's got a laptop or everybody's got a tablet, then we can go down the road and get 200 kids done with testing in 3 days versus 2 weeks. And so that's the real difference in testing, and there are so many other things as far as being able to word process. What we've piloted at this point is simply has all been math. So having the word process and having to do the things that we would do with a Windows 8 tablet has not necessarily been something that they've asked, but these are the things that have come up with other teachers when they ask, well, when we get an iPad, how are we going to do this? And one of the things that we had a number of teachers talk about, we need keyboards with them. And so this is where we've gone, because now we got keyboards we don't have to pay for. We have so many keyboards in our building now, and we can eliminate a testing window for our building.
And I did talk with Christy and Keith a little bit, about the pros and cons of what they've done this year, and I don't have a ton of feedback. I'd like to get some feedback related just to one-to-one. Our test scores better than your traditional and stuff, but just as far as the device goes, they have issues when the student has either slow or no internet at home, like we talked about earlier, because Christy specifically does a lot of videos, and if the video isn't clear, it's a video of her writing on paper and you can't read it. And how YouTube works, it automatically kind of dumbs down the quality of the video if you have a slow connection. Well, in this particular case now, Christine just put her videos on the network. The kids, when they're in class, grab them, and then they can watch them
Take them home.
later at home, and it's not pending on the internet. So that's one thing. Another thing that she mentioned, one student had her own iPad, and iPads don't let you have 2 tasks open at the same time. So she had her own iPad for note-taking, and had the other iPad for watching the videos or the lessons or whatever it was she was doing. Whereas with the Windows device, you can actually drag and drop and split the screen. Now, it doesn't give you a lot of room left, but at least you can have a notepad and watch your video or your lesson at the same time. So she had said that those are 2 distinct advantages in her mind based on what she's used this year.
KSDE produces a list of schools who have been using one-to-ones and for how long and what kind. Excuse me. And we've also proposed that we'll take a group of teachers several times during the year to visit different schools that are in the process, so we can talk to them about what's been effective, what's ineffective, and hopefully get a lot of these questions answered from other people's, learn from their mistakes rather than making them ourselves.
Brian had asked the question earlier about what to do with those iPads. I don't know if I totally finished that. So our elementaries and our middle school could use them as on carts and use them for lessons, but not word processing lessons, not state lessons, maybe an iMovie or a project or, kind of a outside the box fun lesson. And so we'd like to have carts at each of the elementaries and the middle school so we can pass those down to where the teacher can check them out. And all the teachers at those levels have iPads already. So it makes sense to be able to do some of those things.
I'd be excited to have extra iPads.
Yeah. So hopefully the cart situation where they can check them out and do a whole class at a time will work out.
One of the things I thought you did very well was looked at all the detail and also looked at the funding options and things, and so he's presented that also for us. And
Yeah, so if you want to pull up that other document, and this is just kind of a purchasing plan, and a purchasing plan in technology when you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years out, I never really realized how hard that is. It's kind of double-edged sword because you have to have a plan, but it has to also be pretty fluid because prices change, things change, and budgets change. And so if you look on there, there is actually 3 pages, but the top of the first page is what we're looking at, left to spend out of our 12-13 capital. And I know Brian's told me, I can't remember what's left at this point, but we budgeted enough to replace the laptop or iPad carts. And we did talk about potentially, I think you have 3 carts, Ryan, that are due to be replaced this summer. We talked about not replacing those, but then, somebody brought up the point of if we don't replace those, we don't have enough computers to do everything we need to do in this 1 year of time when we don't have any one-to-one and we're not replacing those. So I was proposing that we do maybe 1 cart of tablets and teachers can check them out, and not only so the teachers have them and the teachers can check them out and students can start to use them and get used to them and find out the pros and cons. And then when we do go to a one-to-one, we can they're going to be 1 year older than the rest, but it's still a Windows 8 tablet that we could go into the pool of one-to-one. And then each of the elementaries, some of the elementaries have different goals than others. If they want their mobile cart to be a word processing device where they have a full keyboard, it kind of runs into the same argument we had before, then I would recommend maybe getting a Windows 7 or a Windows 8 laptop. We can find laptops for about the same price as the iPads. So I know, for example, Garfield would like to do laptops because of Eugene Field would like to do laptops because of the things that they're doing, whereas Lincoln, because of the things they want to do with it, they want a cart of iPads. Eugene Field is still Garfield is still kind of up in the air on that. But I budgeted for kind of a high-end laptop on those 18,000. It's actually going to be quite a bit less than that. I figured it's easier to go down than up, so those will all go down a little bit. So the items in red are the things that we're still looking to pay for. I budgeted about $600 each for about 650 or 60 Windows 8 tablets for the high school staff.
Andy, can I stop you for
Yep.
just a second? Just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, right now you're saying that you would want to replace some of our laptop carts with new laptops instead of with the,
Are you talking elementary?
yeah.
Yes. And the biggest problem with laptops that they have now is batteries.
Yeah.
The number one issue is batteries. So that was 5 or 6 years ago. I think they're 6 years old. Now the battery technology is quite a bit better. I think we can get a smaller.
I guess my question is, if the Windows 8 device with a keyboard functions as a laptop, why would we not go that route?
With a Windows 8 device, you could also have to buy a case for it. And there are some educational versions. Lenovo makes them that I would recommend that is about the same screen size, but it's a really durable cover case. It already has the keyboard built into it, so you don't have to worry about all that. And I got a quote on those today for about $450.
So why would we not do that instead of putting a laptop in front of the kid?
That's what I'm saying is we should do that instead. That is the laptop.
But it would still be a device, a tablet device.
Well, I would
That's what I'm confused about.
I would propose for those carts at the elementaries having it be a laptop, potentially. I mean, that's kind of, you have an iPad, or you have a tablet, or you have a laptop. I like the laptop the best because it's the most durable for a cart. The issue that everybody is scared of on a laptop is battery life.
Yeah.
So we need to have some sort of proof or understanding or belief that the battery is gonna last. But we don't know for sure what the battery's gonna do on those tablets. It's hard to predict that.
I guess what I was trying to envision for myself is what is the benefit of the laptop over the Windows 8 device with a keyboard attached to it?
You don't have to worry about having keyboards on the shelf and connecting them.
It's like this, but
A smaller one. You don't have to
all
worry about a
connected,
case,
just
the durability of it. The case is
Okay.
built into it, and they're a little bit cheaper.
And you're still running.
What you lose out on is the touchscreen functionality, and
Which in the elementary
it's another tough question. Even at the high school level in 1-to-1, I'm not totally 100% sure that maybe a laptop is a better answer than a touchscreen tablet.
That's what I'm.
But I am convinced that a Windows device that can replace the computer is
the right answer.
the right answer. Now, what Windows device that is, it's a whole nother ball game of trying to figure it out. But in durability, battery life, price, do you need touchscreen or not touchscreen?
All right, other questions for Andy?
Just one question coming up. Are we close to looking at the Toshiba, since that's one of your big chunks on an annual basis? Are we close to the end of that one, or are we up for renewal?
I met with our Toshiba rep, and I think we signed a 5-year deal.
Way back when?
No, about a year or two, maybe a year and a half ago. So I think we're looking at like 2016 before that comes up. But you can make changes to that contract. So the changes that I would like to propose is to remove all of our desktop printers from the contract. And the way that worked was we're allowed so many copies on the copy machine at a certain rate. And then we have a whole nother subcontract on top of that for all these desktop printers that adds up to about $17,000 a year. What that gives us is and we had to buy all the printers, we own them. But the contract, if they run out of toner, Toshiba sends us a new toner. If they break, Toshiba comes out and fixes it. If it's fixable, if it's not fixable, it's on us to replace it. So what I would propose is, we have way too many of those. I mean, there's probably some exceptions that can be made, but we don't need 200 plus desktop printers on top of our copiers. So what I would propose is to remove those from the contract. We own them, allow the teachers to use them until they are unusable. You know, it doesn't make any sense to just go in and rip them all out in one night. Let them use them, but with the understanding that when its toner is out, you are responsible for buying toner if you want it to keep going. When it completely breaks, you know, it's done. So it gives them some time to adjust to doing a better job of doing what we should be doing, which is printing to the copiers.
I guess the question I would have that's kind of been brought to my mind is, you only have typically one or two of the copiers in a building. Would you add another additional print station in the buildings?
I don't know the copy count at Every, but I know Lincoln has 4 copiers. What do you have, Brian? High school has?
We have 4. They're not necessarily easily acceptable to everybody.
Yeah.
We have
That's, yeah.
2 in the teacher's lounge, 1 in the library, and 1 out at CJ.
And I know.
If we were to go that way, what I would propose is putting 1 in room 100.
Yeah.
So that north hallway has.
You might have to get a little bit strategic with some things, but like right now, we have a desktop printer in almost every teacher's classroom and every single lab.
Yeah.
So it's way too easy to just print every single thing that you decide to print. Instead of thinking, do I really need to print this, and can it be accounted for?
With the one-to-one, you wouldn't print.
And that's the other thing too, Ryan and I have talked about with a one-to-one. Part of that initiative is to be doing
paper.
less printing.
Yeah. And walking to the printer is part of the
So,
wellness
yeah.
program.
Absolutely. That's, yeah. I'm gonna start using that.
Wellness program.
We
And,
did that
and
work.
part of it too is planning ahead. I mean, most of the time, the thing about printing to the copiers is you got to plan ahead, because you might not be able to leave the room that minute to go get it. So if you're trying to print worksheets for your class 5 minutes before class starts, yeah, it's not going to work for you.
It's a lot cheaper than the Hewlett Packard sitting there.
Yeah, and I would like for us to take baby steps, and when our Toshiba contract comes up in 2016, reduce that quantity of 300,000 clicks per month that we have now. You know, cut that back a little bit, but we've got to. It's kind of like roaming fees. You got to know that you can stay under that, because if you go over it, that's when they get you.
Okay. All right, thanks for all your hard work, Andy.
Yep.
Go forth. Moving on to section 5.04. Dr. Kraus?
All right, the bond refinancing, if you didn't open the first one there, Amy. We were contacted by Piper Jaffray. We have some Series 2004 general obligation bonds that in the amount of roughly $4 million, $3,925,000. And we could go from a 3.68% interest rate to a 1.28%. The net savings to the district there would be the first line of the third paragraph there, $195,703 over the life of the bond. I mean, in my mind, this is a no-brainer. We've got an opportunity to refinance, save almost $200,000. I think that's something we obviously should look at.
So we'll follow the agenda and put that on the 13th and start the
Correct.
Yeah, this is
timeline.
to put it in front of you right now, and then as the timeline says, May 13th would be when we would make an official resolution, and it would finalize June 10th.
Never thought we'd have 1.28 as an
I didn't
interest
either.
rate.
That's crazy.
1.28 is,
Free money.
so that's,
And
any questions about?
He did include a schedule also.
Yes,
For
in the- in
on
the
the
s-
next one, it's a
In the
schedule.
second attachment, there is a
Calendar.
schedule.
Calendar, yeah, schedule calendar. Okay,
So we'll start this process on the 13th.
Yep.
in May,
Correct.
but
Yeah,
it's
we'll have a
informational.
No problem there.
All right,
Any questions on that from anyone?
No, it's good.
okay. Moving on to section 5.06, Tiny K request.
You want to do 505?
Oh.
CS.
Oh, CARP, I missed it. CIS first, 505.
Okay, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to look at this before the meeting or not. Basically, CIS is in a kind of a quandary because of the amount of their grant And with switching to a longer PLC time on Wednesdays next year, they'll only be able to staff their program until 3:30. Typically, they've gone to 5:30. So they have three options listed here that they feel like would be logical ways to go. Option one, basically, or proposal one, is just saying it's 3:30, it's time to go home, and at that point, the children would be, bused as they are now to wherever. But anyway, they would be free at 3:30 as opposed to the 5:30, which we now do. Proposal two is for us as USD 290 to pick up the cost of those extra 2 hours from 3:30 to 5:30 with a price tag of about $31,000. And we'll talk a little bit about the ins and outs of that here in just a second. And then proposal three basically is CIS would still go till 3:30, and then from 3:30 to 5:30 would basically be what it would amount to would be a privatized daycare situation for those students from 3:30 to 5:30. Amy, if you can scroll down a little more there, please. Proposal two is the one that CIS is hoping that we will do. And they've kind of listed it out, sending some kids to Camp Chippewa is kind of right now it's toward the bottom of the screen. 3 site coordinators, 12 daily staff, and then they were figuring $15 and $13 an hour respectively. As Terry and I sat down and looked at this, we think that could be, if you opt to go this way, that could be shaved considerably. And again, this is just a discussion item this week. We could hope to give some thought to it and vote on it at the next meeting. When you see number of weeks there toward the top right, they were figuring 39 weeks. This year we have 33 early release days. So right there would be the cost from six Wednesdays that would not be there. If I understood correctly, if they're going till 3:30 and would want us to extend to 5:30, I think we could cut the daily staff hours back from 3.5 and 3 to 2. So that would make a significant difference. And then also, I think we could look at the hourly wage. Would not necessarily have to be 15 and 13, I don't think. The Camp Chippewa activities look wonderful. I personally have a little bit of trouble saying we'll do that on taxpayer money. I think we could easily continue a program without having the additional cost of the Camp Chippewa things. But like I said, for today, just basically wanted to put it in front of you so you see and we could come up with a fourth option too, as far as that goes.
One question, because this has been proposed by some other people I've talked to in the past. What I'm reading here, if we did the Camp Chippewa option, it's $44.40 per student per year to participate. Would that be something that we would want to offer as an option, to where people, maybe you do half of it and people could pay the $44 as Bill had a child that was needing to have that? Bill, would you be willing to pay the $44.40 to do an enrichment program on Wednesdays?
No, that's a bunch of Methodists out there, and we know. Don't want to be mixing with those Methodists. No, I was raised a Methodist. No, I have questions about the Camp Chippewa part of it beyond that. Just transportation out there. I mean, we know what the roads are like out to Camp Chippewa, anybody that's been out there. And with weather and, I don't know, our liability. I don't know,
I thought it's creative. I think it'd be
great.
when you break it down for $44.40, that's, if again, the parents that are gonna have the issues, that's got a child that's normally there to 5:30 on Wednesday, 3:30 is kind of tough if we don't do something to 5:30.
Yeah, we can't do that.
As a
As a
working parent of 2 kids who are in the after-school program, yeah, you can't do that. It's already on Friday. They don't offer it on Friday. It only goes Monday through Thursday. So already on Friday, you have to scramble and find something. And Ottawa is extremely hard to find childcare, especially for just 1 day a week. I mean, I usually have to cut out of work early, and then, I have to get my daughter and stuff. So it's really hard. So if you did it on Wednesday, it puts the parents who are in that situation in a real bad spot.
Yeah, I don't think we can do
I
that.
got- the only issue I have about the 40, if you ask the 40, the parent to pay that $40, if that fee comes at the beginning of the year when they're paying registration fees, now granted, I think of it in my own terms, that would be an outrageous fortune for somebody like me.
Well, we could
Well-
break it down on,
They can split it up monthly.
Payments.
The after-school program, the way it works now is you can pay it all up front, registration, or you can do it monthly, I think.
I just thought it was a
Yeah, I mean,
creative idea.
I mean, I love the idea of the Chippewa thing, I really do. I think that's an opportunity that a lot of kids
I mean,
miss
they already
out
do a
on.
lot of things right now. They take them to the ORC, they take them roller skating once a month, they take them to Forest Park.
Sure.
It's a good program.
Well, and I have a little bit of angst with proposal 3 up there, just with being a provision of daycare. I think that opens up a whole can of worms for the district.
Because we'd still have some cost in it.
Yeah, and we would then be competing with private business, you know? But I do think we've got to figure out some way to creatively meet the needs that are there.
There isn't very much private business that's offering this service, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
that is true.
I like option 2 the best.
Yeah,
I do
I do
too.
too.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
think we need-
if you shave 6 days off it, that puts it down to about, what, 20,000, 21,000?
Yeah, so maybe could we have
Brian,
like,
would that be doable for, that's the one with 290 picking it up? So
Yeah.
is that a doable thing?
Well, it's gonna be tight if we use 20,000 there for that, that's 20,000 we have to take away somewhere else. Our funding is flat next year, so if we opt to spend 20,000 here, we need to remove 20 somewhere else.
okay? I do think, yeah, I do think it's a valuable program. Can you guys look maybe at the numbers a little tighter and shoot those out to us maybe?
Yeah, well,
Before May
we can look
13th.
at, you know, we were looking at the staff compensation as being similar to what we would compensate our paras and building aides at this point. This is, quite honestly, is above what we pay any of our people in those positions. So we'll come back with something figure the exact number of weeks and give an estimate based on a different salary and a different amount of time in there in the hours per
Is
week.
part of the reason for that because of the fact that you're only doing it for 2 to 3 hours a day as opposed to a full day?
Is what part of it?
The wage?
The wage being higher to help offset?
Those were proposed by CIS.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm thinking is if it's kind of a compensation for the fact that you're only working 2.5 to 3 hours a day versus 6 to 8.
A number of these workers may be people who are working for us during the day because Wednesday is short and then they can still fit a block of time in there and be below 40 hours. So I would anticipate quite a few of these workers being USD 290 employees.
Okay. But
Oh,
he
so
can
you're saying
find
just
out.
carry them on
Cost
as,
is
on USD 290, on their 290 wage and then go on from there to give them their full
So that
40?
basically
Okay.
Some of the pairs that
Or,
we have.
or just come up with a set wage. I mean, like I said, this is higher than what we're paying most of our
Correct.
people now for similar activities.
Well, I think it's a good plan, Dr. Kraus, because we've got to meet the obligations since we're asking for the PLC time.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of calls about the same kind of issues that Brandon has.
Yeah, and I have, that's one I've heard some about.
And proposal 2 then would allow us to dismiss at the same time that we are
Yeah.
on the other days.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to the next section, 5.06, Tiny K request. And for those of you who are probably new, this, Tiny K is a group that does our early intervention program.
It used to be the,
It used to be OWIT.
OWIT.
OWIT,
Um,
which I never thought was a very good name.
Thank you for covering up my scribbling there at the top, Amy. I wanted to apologize for having that on there. The reason that we're talking about this at all is Tiny K, which was OWIT, 2 years ago, Greenbush was their fiscal agent. This year, Keystone Learning Services and Lawrence is their fiscal agent. They are no longer willing to do that, so Tiny K is wanting to come to USD 290 and asking us to be the fiscal agent. If you had time to look through the document, there are some things that I have some concern about. Amy, if you could go, I think it's the 3rd page. Yeah, right there.
Employment.
the employment, the responsibilities, they basically have, I believe, 11 staff people in Douglas County that service Douglas County schools, primarily USD 497, Lawrence, and a couple, I believe, in Eudora. And we're wanting us to be the fiscal agent to pick up those 11 additional staff people. About right in the middle of the screen, that said they're wanting to make all the hiring and firing decisions. That in itself makes me a little bit nervous. If we're going to be the fiscal agent, we need to have control of that, in my opinion. The other thing that makes me nervous is why they would be on their third fiscal agent in 3 years. There's a potential ramification if we were to take on all of their employees. We also cover them with unemployment, workers' compensation. Our workers' compensation premiums are already outrageous. If we would pick up somebody who would happen to have a serious accident or illness, that would further boost those. So I'm nervous about taking this on as the fiscal agent.
Have they, simple question, since they're in Lawrence, have they talked to that school district?
Terry and Cindy and I met with them, and if I recall correctly, Terry, they had not gone that direction yet. They came to us first. I don't know if they thought we were soft or what, but.
I mean, it is in their backyard, and supervision from office staff and at the district level would be a whole lot easier to have meetings and dialogue with them.
And the bulk of the employees are going to be working in Douglas County.
Correct.
That was.
I concur with your concerns. It's hard to administrate a service that far away and be active.
I think we're in the middle of a transition, and we don't need to be messing with anything else. That's my personal opinion. I think we've got enough on our plate.
So is the board's direction that we should tell them we are not interested in being their fiscal agent? That's what I
Yes.
would like to know for tonight.
That's what I would say.
But thank you for asking.
Okay.
We appreciate the thought.
Exactly. We appreciate you remembering us.
All right,
But-
well, we'll contact them then and let them know that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on that?
No. Section 5.07, board reports.
I have to
Yes, ma'am?
remember one day not long ago I didn't have any.
I know, and now you're double down. You're doubling down.
I think I have 3 more. I just sat here and counted. I have 3
Okay.
more before I leave.
Oh, my.
Eugene Field Site Council meeting at April 9th. We had, they talked about the watchdogs, and I would like to welcome all of you men to be a watchdog for them, if not this year, next year, if not for them, another school. Mr. Stevens went and did that, and he appreciated what I've been doing for 40 years when he got home. And he was amazed at what went on, and he enjoyed it immensely. He said he'd do it again. And I saw one of my former students doing it today, and it's just such a, you can't describe how neat it is to see those kids interact with that dad or grandpa in Chuck's case. But it was a really neat thing to see one-on-one. They have been taking state assessments, and I'm not going to go into well, yes, I am, because last year the reading was at 72% meeting standards, and this year is 72%. So at least they didn't go backwards, and that's a good thing. They are getting ready to take the Smarter Balance test, and as we all know, the kids are tested to death, and it's too bad that it has to be that way. Early May, they're going to have a buddy evacuation drill, and they have, I will say, partnered with the Nazarene Church. They have met, and they have decided what part of the church who goes to. They've decided everything like ambulances. They've decided everything about communication, parent pickup. Everything has been decided that they're going to have a drill, practice drill, I'll say. Hopefully, they'll never need it, but who knows if they will. And I'm really glad to see that happening. We did talk about the fencing that we have later on the agenda. We talked briefly about, the modulars are there, and we talked briefly. Tim Catlin had a report of how he has a plan of how to get the kids all into the building for regular classes and extra classes outside, and they're studying that. Shannon is working with her teachers, and they're studying that. So that basically takes care of Eugene Field. Then ORC. One of the neatest things to be an ORC person is to see the scholarships. Jeffrey Doolittle had a youth sport scholarship, which is really neat to see. He had been in ORC sports for a long time. I don't know how long, a long time. And he received a scholarship. Didn't say how much, didn't ask, but any scholarship, as you all know, helps. They talked about Play City that's at the end of May, I believe, and they talked about all the extra things that's going on. Their programming, our people are really active and trying to get new things. I was glad to hear, and I've already told you this once, part of it, but they have some fur trapping classes. They had some fur trapping classes. 16 people ages 16 to 53. They had some gun safety classes, 26 people, 11 to 52. So it's not just the kids they're meeting the needs, and I thought that was really great. They've talked about it for a long time, and they are going to charge the American Legion more than they have been, and I'm sure the American Legion isn't happy with that, but there was a discrepancy between Babe Ruth and American Legion, and they're trying to equal it out. And so we'll find out what happens in the next meeting, whether that was, well, it was approved, so they will have to do it. But I was glad to see it equal. I was glad to see that they finally bit the bullet and did what they needed to do. And Joe Goddard resigned, and they have, well, according to the paper, they replaced him, but that's all I'm going to say. Because I heard something today that somebody was going for an interview today to do that, and I thought, I don't know, because if they replaced him, how could they? Anyway, so hopefully they'll have a new person on board by May, and that's the end of my reports.
Thank you.
Brian, is it your turn or my turn this time?
I've got one from middle school too, whenever you're done.
I don't think we have really anything for it.
We had negotiations meeting this evening and had some discussions around the renewal date, which we still have more discussions to have there. Discuss some language regarding the duty day and the start and stop times for the duty day and some flexibility there. I think that was fruitful. What else?
You know, those were really the two topics we talked about. We talked
Yeah.
about computers, which was off topic.
Yeah.
Calendar.
Oh, that's right, we
Yeah,
talked about the.
we did talk about the teacher
moving
conferences in
conferences, yes.
in February, and
Staying the same.
it's going to stay where it's currently located. And the teachers were tickled, apparently, to get the opportunity to voice their opinion about that.
All right, middle school had their site council meeting, and they are ramping up for the end of the year, very busy. Of course, in testing, dissecting the Common Core standards. PTA gave a report, and those people are going like they're on fire, trying to keep up, trying to get to the end of the year. They're doing a lot of good stuff. And the other thing was about their after-school program, and Carmen, I guess at some point, did you ever say that how much that after-school grant was and things like Jason's report? Yeah, have you ever shared that with us? Okay. It is. Yeah, I'd like for him to come and tell us about that and tell us about all the things that they do in that after-school program, if that's all right. If we could put that on a list at some point. Right. And
Fifth graders coming to sixth grade.
right. Yeah, they've got some really cool projects coming up. Makes me wish I was a fifth grader again a little bit, but anyway.
I'm not sure there's much that would make me wish to be a fifth grader.
I know, but they've got some really cool stuff coming up.
Had a good year that year.
Yeah. But not to relive middle school again, that was, anyway. All right, 5.08, Dr. Kraus, welcome back from your trip.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to report to you. And I put this in your memo, but I just wanted to hit on it again. We had discussed the possibility of Neosho County possibly taking over our auto tech classes, and I visited with some of their administration, and they decided that was not a direction that they wanted to go. So we have, Mr. Satterfield is retiring this year, and I have reposted the position, so that we'll be gathering applications and filling that on our own, and going about with the curriculum as we have in the past. I think everything else I got out to you in our memo, so I don't really have anything else.
Okay.
Well, thank you for checking in on that. I think it could be still a good partnership.
Yep.
Be other ways that we can get involved with them. Any way that we can get college credit for our kids and have them come out with a labor-ready certificate, we need to explore that, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to section 6.01, food service bid. I know that we had Marge and David served on this committee, which was it, and I did it in the one prior to this, and it's a tremendous amount of work to pull stuff together and to look at things. What would you guys like to discuss?
I'll let you start since you actually were able to go visit also.
Okay. After we met first, then we decided to go to a school where OPA has the food service. We know what Chartwells have because we've had it here. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been in the lunchroom several times during the day of Chartwells here. We went to the K3 building, wasn't it? K3 building. It was a lot more students, but smaller kids. And we were very impressed. This is their first year. And we were very impressed with what the cooks and head team told us. We did not see any children eating, but we saw the food they were getting ready to eat. It was kind of on a tight schedule there between 3 schools. So they were very welcoming, and we looked at the food they were eating, and we were very impressed of the way they took care of all the special needs. Then we went to the 5th, 6th grade building, and we saw those kids eating. We also saw those kids standing in line waiting to eat. They had a special, I would say probably this big table, a salad bar for the teachers that was in a different hall. Well, it came out of the kitchen down into a different hall, so very fresh, very nice looking, so those teachers would have the ability to get a salad bar that was different than what was for the kids. We watched them check the kids in and out. They seemed to be very happy. I went over and asked some kids about some things. They had free choice as far as veggies and fruits. Some kids had them piled pretty high, and we talked about that. I went over as a grandma and a mother. I went over and checked their trash. Very little trash, very little food in the trash. Napkins, but not food. And I was very glad to see that. They were eating, they were happy. We had a couple of kids that said, "You don't want to eat this, bring your own." You know, but I think that would be from anywhere and everywhere. I thought that was kind of funny for them to be brave enough to say that to us. Then we went to the high school. They had less, the way Ryan talked, they had less choices there as far as less places to go. You know, I don't have those down in front of me, but
They had fewer options, but the options they had were fairly popular, is what I remember. you guys
yes,
telling me.
pretty much. And again, I walked over, talked to the kids, and this young, I would say he was probably a freshman, he looked up at me and said, "What's up?" This old lady looking down at him, wondering what's going on. And he says, I said, "Do you get enough to eat?" He says, "Yes, I do." And he had broccoli piled this high, and other food, oranges this high, and applesauce over here, and he said, I never get hungry. I can only have one sandwich, but I can eat the rest, anything I want, the rest of it, and I'm full. And are you happy? Yes. And they had the option of buying some things, so if they had practice and things like that, they could buy that, take it to the locker, like a drink of some kind, or chips or stuff like that. So they had some options, and we were just very pleased with what we saw.
Were they expecting you?
Yes, I think so, because we made appointments too.
Okay.
But as far as what was served and all of that, that wouldn't have changed. I mean, because we saw the menu, and then, that wouldn't have changed. I was very happy to see, surprised to see, actually. There was a kid that I didn't think had enough on his plate. In fact, he had a sandwich and one other thing on his plate. And the checker stopped him and said one sentence, and he said, okay, and he walked back, got an apple, got something else, away he went. And it wasn't one of the three choices. The entree wasn't one of the three entree choices. So we all decided that was probably a special needs kid that had to have a certain food, that couldn't have whatever, but they were, and he just went through. I said, with all these extra, that they can buy ice cream and they can buy this and that, what about the long lines? And they said the first week was pretty bad because of the changeover, because this was the first year, but after that, they did really well.
And there were a couple things that we should probably point out. We had two bidders in the end, OPA and then our current provider, Chartwells. The way we went about it is that we put it together everybody on the team had a rubric that they filled out and calculated through that, each person individually, and then I assume they added them all together. So by and large, everybody had their own voice in that particular outing, so.
Susan, can I interject one thing? When you asked if they knew we were coming, Brian and I both contacted their principals just to set up the meeting. And we actually didn't contact OPA, but the principals did. But we arrived before they knew we were coming. And so for the first half an hour that we were there was no OPA representative, and we were walking around. And when we were there, Piper does it where they still employ their own employees. They aren't technically OPA employees, they are Piper employees. And so the lady that we were talking to, the head kind of director or their team lead in charge of their kitchen, was very honest with us and doesn't work for OPA, so kind of had that outside view of, it's gone really well and that sort of thing. And when the representative came, she didn't change her tune at all. She was right on board before anybody came. And so I feel like we got an accurate representation from the staffing there, that it was not in any way, just coming from OPA.
All right. So, given you guys have worked with committee, do you have a recommendation out of committee?
We don't have the money yet. Well,
Do you want, we just,
go ahead.
let's say, the committee recommends that we go with OPA.
Okay. All right. That guy Roberts and his rules, if it comes out of committee, then do we need a second?
We don't do Roberts.
No, we don't do Roberts Rule of Order, really.
Well, we still have to make a motion.
Okay.
So do we have a motion?
Is the price comparable?
What's the pricing?
You want,
You have those. 'cause
you
I
have those
don't
figures.
I didn't bring 'em
OPA
here.
was actually about 70 grand less than Chartwell's.
So,
70,000.
so is that 70,000 including staff? I heard you said at Piper, staff is employees.
It's inclusive of staff.
And that included a 3% raise for those employees. They would accept our people where they are as far as 4 years, 5 years, whatever. And also, that included a 3% raise for next year.
So part of the agreement is to look at our current employees under
Yes.
Chartwell's.
They will look at our current employees.
And then the question is, I know over the last several years, we bought new equipment. Is it very clear on that the equipment that we have purchased is our equipment? Do
Yes.
we have any transition? Is that all documented, or what's Chartwell's, what's ours?
That should all be clearly
That should
documented.
all be we don't know that as a committee. I don't know if anybody else does.
Okay.
I mean, I think,
Well,
Definitely
Dean
needs
was
to be
ahead of that, and he isn't here to talk about that, but he would have an understanding
Yeah.
of that.
It is our,
Check on
it's
that,
our
couldn't you?
understanding that all of our equipment, other
We wanna
than
keep our
like
equipment.
banners and things like that, belongs to the district. Anything that's brand oriented, like some of their line banners and things like that, that belongs to Chartwell's. And so, but the actual functioning equipment in the kitchen belongs to USD 290.
Okay. Other questions? All right, do I have a motion?
Madam
Did you
President,
make a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the bid from OPA for our food service contract for next year.
Want to second it?
Okay, motion by David, seconded by Marge.
question,
Uh,
is any of our staff members under Chartwell under any non-compete?
Only one
I
that
don't have
might
a
be would be
clue.
Marcia.
Do you have a non-compete?
And does that include just you or the staff also? Okay. Other questions and discussion?
We just started a greenhouse program. Is OPA planning on taking that over?
That wasn't discussed in, as far as I know, it wasn't discussed.
Yeah, the greenhouse wasn't part of the bid process.
No.
So do we have anybody
I'm sure,
taking that program over?
well, I'm sure they will. That wasn't part of it, because it's not part of the contract now. It's part of what they do, but it's not. That wasn't ever discussed.
Be something up for grabs. Other questions?
No, it wasn't.
All right, so are we, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5. Opposed, same sign. 2. All right, thank you for your hard work. Okay, 6.02.
Okay, the fencing we had discussed, I believe it was May 1st. Amy, if you can.
April.
I'm sorry, April 1st.
April
yeah.
1st.
Some month on the first
Sometime.
day.
I think it was April Fool's Day.
If you can pull up the diagram of that, Amy, I think it should be on there. Yeah, let's look at that one first. This is the diagram that we talked about. The yellow is existing fencing. Excuse me. The red is proposed, or what I had proposed that you add to fencing. Basically, it fences the playground yard. It moves the fence on the east side back a ways and moves the playground area for vision, line of sight for the teachers who are supervising. The area that's both red and green lines are what would be added if you opt to fence the entire campus. The cost for, Amy, go ahead and close that one out and get the next one, if you would, please.
Mine don't open it up at all.
Yes, pretty sure that's where it is.
I'll go to it.
And scroll down till we get to
At the meeting, to get to April 1st meeting.
item C. The playground fencing only, the low bid was $65.39. The option 2, which was the entire campus fencing, was $18,650. My original recommendation had been to fence only the playground area. That is still my recommendation for the same reasons, basically because we don't have a long-term facilities plan in place at this point, and I feel like we need to be careful about how much money we're putting into a building that may or may not be in use for multiple years. Also, if you remember looking at the initial survey results, there was minimal support for using Eugene Field in the long term. So that's still remains my recommendation.
Well, and wasn't there a fire issue from the fire, the second
Yeah,
lieutenant?
Ginger actually talked to a representative from the fire department. Can she comment
Sure.
on that?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't
Why don't you come up to the mic so we can get you on TV?
Yeah.
I don't think that we ran that through the city. I mean, when we went and got the pricing, I don't know what the process was on it, but I don't believe it's been run through the city and approved. And we had some questions from when you guys met a couple weeks ago about moving some of the fencing. The question.
To split the door.
Yeah, the question I had there was, would that be a fire problem to split a door like that, or would that be a handicap accessible problem? Yes, that was a problem, but in talking to Oglesby, I think was who was over, he was in question on the fencing because if you fence the whole property, they don't have access to the buildings without going through a gate. And with it not being a sprinkled building, he said that posed a problem. Also, with the modulars, that would pose another problem because they have to be able to get in there without, limited access. So the way he talked was he didn't think that the fencing around the whole project would actually work, and it needs to be presented to the city.
Would you mind going ahead and taking those next two steps to make clarity, or?
Yeah. So you want an opinion from the city as to the feasibility of having the entire campus fenced? Sure, we can get that.
Okay.
We already approved the playground.
Playground has been
We've
approved.
approved the equipment, yes, but not, the
Playground
fencing
fencing.
was separate.
Oh, no
No, we have
fencing
not.
has been approved.
It does have some fencing, it needs more, the playground.
It needs
Yeah.
more, the playground needs more fencing. The
Right.
question is,
All
then
that's
does
there
it
right
also
now is
become
the
a...
yellow.
Yellow.
Right. So the question then becomes, how is the red additional part?
And are we in a timeline crunch to get this done
Schedule
over the
this
summer, if we wait on the city? The playground, I don't think is gonna be an issue to get that fenced. The rest of it is really what is concerning for the fire department,
Right.
and what the fire department really wants the city to buy off on.
I don't think they had an issue with the playground part, it was just when he started closing the whole building.
Right. And my concern is, getting it scheduled in, so we at least got the playground secured. So, do we?
Because if you do the playground and opt at some time to do the rest of the campus, you wouldn't be losing anything because that little short red section there would still be there to keep kids on the playground,
Right.
right there where she has her cursor. So you wouldn't be, there would be no
So
additional
my
cost.
suggestion would be that we at least get the playground scheduled and done, so that at least our kids are safe in the playground.
But then we can put the rest of it on study, and that kind of becomes part of our facilities plan piece.
Except
so you-
you have that parking lot in the back, and you have 100 kids walking by ones and twos from the modulars to that building, and you have that open parking lot that those kids have to go by to get into the building, and you have ones or twos kids doing that. And when I'm down there, when I look, you see a bunch of cars. You don't know whose cars they are,
Yeah.
and
I don't disagree with that point. I
Well,
think it's
it's just
something
that-
we should look at, but I don't know if the full. the
well, how
full
long are we
fence.
going to wait before we have a child missing? This fall, we had a problem. It ended up being not a problem, but for a while there it was. It was just miscommunication between some people. But how long are we going to wait?
Marcia, don't get me wrong, I think enclosing the entire campus would be great. I think it probably needs to be done if we plan on keeping Eugene Field. But it is concerning that we've got those fire sprinklers in that building. And if we lock off that entire campus, we do have an issue with accessibility for the fire department.
How long
Granted,
would
they
it
got
take?
big bolt cutters, but
How long would it take to open that up? But by the time you call 911 and then go out and,
Do we have gates in here and all that?
no, well, gates.
Originally, Richard had talked about
I guess looking at this plan, I don't see where the gates are. where
I don't
they're
see any
cut
gates
in.
on there.
Okay.
Well, I know it
Yeah,
just
there-
told
there are-
to Richard where the
What, Marge?
playground is.
What did you say? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I just, listen to her, she's telling you.
I mean, you said they have gates or
No,
don't
they do
have?
not.
Well, shouldn't we have gates?
It's in really tiny print. There's 3 of them along that, along Tremont there.
Along the east side?
Yeah.
Sidewalks, no gates.
Great, but that's not big enough for fire.
Drive a fire truck through there.
I just like to have the opinion that the city would bless that plan and the fire department would bless it too, so we don't spend $18,000, we install it, and then we have another ups later. That's all I'm asking all along, is making sure we get the city permit, because it says pending city permit, right? And again, if the fire department wants an egress, we need to at least put in the gate wide enough like we have. I think we have a large gate at Lincoln, don't we, on the backside of the property?
In Garfield
That we
does
lock
too.
up in
Garfield
Garfield.
does
So
too.
all I just want to make sure that we meet the fire department specs, since it is an unsprinkled building.
Good.
So were you making a motion, Brian?
Well, I make a motion that we approve at least, at the minimum, the playground fencing, so that our kids can stay safe on the playground.
I'll second that.
I don't have the bid in front of me, so I can't really
Was,
see what the playground bid was.
I guess the only thing I would request is that we make sure that if we put the playground fencing in, which I'm not saying we shouldn't do any of it, but will we incur a new, different charge for having whoever does the playground fence to come back and put the remaining fence in? Or is it cheaper to do it all at once? I don't know, I'm asking
There
the
isn't any
question.
way to tell from how the bid is written,
No.
or what Richard was thinking at the time, because he's not here to answer that either.
Is that
Or to
possible to
hear
find
what
out?
he's-
Okay.
I-
Yeah, I'm sure we can find that out. I tend to agree with Brian, though. I think it's gonna be a time crunch. And if we drag our feet much more on this, it's not gonna happen at all this summer.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd say let's go for at least that much.
Okay. So there's a motion from Brian and a second from Bill, correct? To accept the 6539 and then take the option 2 under study and get city buy-in and things from there.
Let's see, we'll still need a
Other
permit
discussion?
on even the playground equipment.
Sure.
They're still going to need to sign off on that.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'll take that out of capital?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed, same sign. 6-1. Okay. Section 6.04, renewal of E-2020.
skipped it.
Skip one.
Oh, my
Keep
goodness,
skipping.
I keep
You're
skipping.
skipping a lot tonight.
Just
I'm
do an
sorry.
even-
Desire to
Well,
get out of here tonight, do you?
No, I get them
Just
both
do an even numbers.
highlighted. Yeah, I know it. I get them both highlighted somehow. I'm sorry, Shannon. My fault. Camp Kindergarten.
You gotta make them do push-ups.
Okay, tonight, I'm just proposing to you something that we're looking at doing for the beginning of next school year with our kindergartners. Some of this discussion has come out of District Advisory Council, but I know from speaking to the kindergarten teachers in my building, it's something that kindergarten teachers in our district have thought about for a long time. The thought process is that we receive kindergartners at Kindergarten Roundup. We see them for about a half an hour or so, and then they come for a visiting day. We just did that last week, and they were there for an hour and a half or so. And so that really is about the only time we see those kindergartners. Some of them have gone to preschool, some have not. Those that have not, we really have only the limited information that we saw them the half an hour and the hour and a half. And the problem that our kindergarten teachers are running into is that many of those students are obviously not coming prepared as others. They come in such a variety. Some that have been through 3- and 4-year-old preschool, or some that have been in Head Start, some that have never been in a preschool. So they're not accustomed to the academic setting and what school is about. In thinking about that and coming through the District Advisory Council, behavior has been a part of that as well. We're getting more and more students at younger ages that behaviorally are really struggling.
And so something that we have thought about and other districts have done is a camp kindergarten. First of all, Charla Testorf's here. Wave your hand, Charla. Charla's one of our kindergarten teachers at Lincoln. And so when we started thinking about this idea, Charla has done some conversing back and forth with the Olathe and the Shawnee Mission School Districts just to kind of get a feel for what are some things that worked for them, what are some comments that they had for us, and so in doing a little bit of research. So thank you, Charla, for your hard work and for being here tonight. And if you have questions, obviously ask me, ask Charla, we'll try to fill you in. But the idea or the premise behind Camp Kindergarten is that when we start school in the fall, the moment that the kindergartners come in the door, that very first day of school, which is Friday, August 16th, all of our students have a half day. They would have a half day as well, but they would not be assigned to a teacher yet or placed in a classroom as such. Those first few days would be really customizing things. So we would take test data, we would look at their behavioral needs, we would start running them through some kind of centers and activities and see what group play looks like. Start to identify some kids that maybe have not been in preschool before. What can we do to acclimate them? What group of students do they work best with? And make up our classes as we go along those first few days. Adjust kids in and out of groups until we feel like we have the right mix. Because what we're finding is we put kids in a kindergarten classroom right now based off of that half an hour or hour and a half that we've seen them, and sometimes we don't have them round up or we don't have them come to that kindergarten visiting day, and we have no experience with that child whatsoever, nor sometimes has that child had any experience in the classroom setting. So we just go ahead and place them with our best guess or where there's availability, and it really is sometimes a little bit treacherous to make it through the whole year. Sometimes we'll have classes that come together and they are just fine and rolling along, and then some other classes where we've got a lot of academic needs, some behavioral concerns, and so this really just is a way to sort of level out the playing field a little bit and spread those children out and get a good mix instead of just placing them and hoping it all works out okay. As we've looked at this, some suggestions that our kindergarten teachers gave us, we have met with them. We met with them a couple of weeks ago. And so given their input, given the input that we have from Shawnee Mission and from Olathe, and looking at what they have, we've sort of mapped out what we think Camp Kindergarten would look like for us in USD 290. That first full week of school, the kids are scheduled to be here just like any other week. So all students would be here from 3:35 or till 3:35, except on Wednesdays at that early PLC time. What we'd like to do instead is shorten the day a little bit and it looks like that's an old copy, so I apologize. Up there where it says Tuesday, August 20th, we're making that a full day. So that, when we discussed it with kindergarten teachers, we did change that part of it. So what you have in front of you then is what the schedule would look like. So that Friday, everybody would dismiss at 12 o'clock, so would kindergarten. That's not any different. This doesn't add any time to our teacher's contract day, doesn't add any time financially to anything. That Monday then that kids start back full days, it's kind of a long day for kindergartners as we're acclimating them. So the thought was if we kept them until mid-afternoon sometime and shortened their day on that Monday, then that would give our teachers time to come back in the afternoon and talk about what didn't work well, what have we seen from the testing, how can we rearrange the kids for tomorrow to make sure we've got a good mix of kids, and really work through and collaborate in the afternoon. I talked to Deb Sprudy at the bus department to see if she could make a dismissal work for our kindergartners earlier than that 3:35 time. She said she definitely could do that. They could make that workable. She hesitated on doing anything later than 1 o'clock and didn't feel like they could get routes run for kindergartners. and then get back to pick up our regular kids for 3:35. So what we did on that Monday is make it the 12:45 dismissal, just like Wednesday would be, in an effort to try to keep some times consistent for parents as much as we could. Then, like I said, there's a misprint there, but on Tuesday it would be full day, on Thursday it would be full day, and on Friday it would be full day. On that Friday, what we would do is then have class placements ready. So that gives us 2 full days of school. That gives us Tuesday and Thursday to really take a good look at what we think can work and make it as manageable as possible for the rest of the year and make some really good class mixes. Then on that Thursday, our teachers would really kind of brainstorm, is this what we think we've got going on? Make what we think is probably a final class list. And then on Friday, when parents come in, we would have permanent placements in place for the remainder of the year. And on that Friday, in some form or fashion, I think all the schools are wanting to do it a little differently, but on that Friday, then we would have some type of meet the teacher event where parents could come in, bring all of their final supplies in, meet the teacher, see where they're going to be, and have kind of an open house then on that Friday for parents. The reason that we're going with this, like I said, is really because of academic and behavioral concerns and just getting a good mix of those kids. Some of those kids we don't have much testing data on at all and don't know where their needs really lie. And so this will give us the opportunity to figure out what they need and help best match their needs better than what we're doing now. And as you can see, I think on the second page, there is comments, benefits that the Olathe School District has sent us, that they feel like it has worked out really well for them and set them up for a great kindergarten year.
Shannon, I know you guys had talked about that there are going to be a small number of kids who need that stability right from day one.
Right.
Talk to them a little bit about what
Right.
you're going to do to address that.
As an example, if we had a student who was autistic or coming from a behavior, maybe they were, for example, in the PALS program, and we already know those students, or they're coming from CTEC, and we can already get some really good information from the teachers that we have here. If that's the case, we would already have those particular students that have some high needs placed with a teacher, so they're not out rotating, getting confused. They really would stay with a classroom teacher and be assigned from the get-go. So we don't want to make this more difficult for kids. The hope is that this turns out to be a great experience for everyone, but there are some exceptions with some students with some special needs that we would want to think about and address already from the get-go and assign them to a classroom.
Now, when you say you're not building a classroom roster from the get-go, does that mean that a child who rounds up at Lincoln could be shipped or transferred to Eugene Field or Garfield, depending on where you think their placement should be?
No. We would determine placement based on availability of the building and space needs like we always do. That would be the same protocol. So we couldn't exceed limits somewhere,
Just building cohesive
This
classrooms
is
within your building.
correct. Yes. This.
I know in Olathe, what they've done before too is between their elementary schools, once enrollment happens and you know for sure between the building principals which kids are going to be at which school. For example, I know in enrollment we always end up with a couple kids at Lincoln. That Lincoln is their home school, but they would prefer Eugene Field or Garfield because of babysitting, whatever the circumstances are. Once those final placements are done in their home, the school that they would be going to, then we kindergarten teachers would make the first day class list at that point. We would let you know and then work with it from that point. But there are kids with special needs that will need stability from the very beginning of the day. The other advantage to this is that in studying what Olathe has done, every kindergarten teacher is doing the same activities each day. So they're not getting, each teacher's different, but they're not getting a different lesson on day one that, the other kids didn't get the same day. It would be the same.
And we talked about how our curriculum is such, like Journeys, it's very blanketed. We're all working on this particular lesson, and that will be very easy to implement. The other thing that we had talked about is possibly having theme days, those days, maybe basing it on a book or Miss Bendergarten goes to kindergarten, or basing it on a book and having activities that day revolve around a theme or an idea. And so the notion is, and I'm sure it will look different in every building because we're a 2-section school and a 3-section school and a 4-section school, but those teachers will at some point have touched base with every kid, whether it's watching them in a small group or working with them for testing or seeing them on the playground. They will have some contact at some point with all of those students just to start building relationships and rapport and getting to know each other. So going back to that idea, we will build rough class lists, kind of like a rough draft, for those first few days, and just keep tweaking it until we feel like we have the right combination. So,
Do you I was going to say, do you anticipate violence between kindergarten teachers? I want Sally, you have to take Johnny, this kind of thing, or?
we'll settle it by arm wrestling. That's already been
Rock,
decided.
paper, scissors.
Indian leg
No,
wrestling.
that would cause a workers' comp claim.
Oh,
So
yeah,
do
we better not do
run
that.
Can't do that.
Rock, paper, scissors, that's
That,
safe.
that depends on how you do it.
So without having an assigned
with
classroom on
rock,
day
paper,
one, where will
papers,
the
no.
students go to report to school on day one?
Well, what we had talked about, all of our students meet in our gymnasium area anyway, and I know Lincoln does the same. We would set up like a kindergarten area, and our kindergarten
corral.
teachers, kind of like the kindergarten corral. Yes, all of our
Round them
kindergarten
up,
teachers
throw them in
would
the
greet
corral.
them and meet them and bring them down as a group and divide them up and move through activities together. So it really would be more of a team group effort those first couple of days. They would not, just be floating, but the kindergarten teachers would work together to make that happen, probably as well as our counselors. Our counselors on those first few days are incredibly helpful and spend a lot of time with crying kindergartners and crying kindergarten parents, and we'll probably be assisting with that, as well as what we've talked about is those first couple of days back, our title aides typically don't have a lot to do until groups get started with reading groups and things. And so utilizing some of our other support staff in the building that may have some extra time on their hands to help support kindergarten, we will try to allocate some extra staff to them.
This-
The other big plus to this is that it offers a chance to screen the children when they come at the beginning of the year with a bit more in-depth testing. What we use for screening right now for kindergarten roundup is a Bergantz screening, which is maybe, I taught for 13 years as a district. It was used when I student taught in kindergarten 14 years. So it's been around for a very long time. Part of it, there's portions of it that's very out of date and does not really give you a true picture of where a child can perform, where their academic skills are. The advantage to that is the preschools are using those skills. So they come in with great looking skills, but that first day of school, all of a sudden you're going, whoa, 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 okay, and you're just hit with a bunch of different, this would just give us a chance to really screen, use our title teachers and title aides to help us, and look at really true behavior mixes between kids.
Sure.
Sometimes we get kids that move in over the summer that did not come to Roundup, and they didn't come to visiting day. We know nothing about them. They show up at enrollment, and all of a sudden you have a mix of 3 boys in your class that
Doesn't work.
it does not.
You noticed this.
We don't know anything
Well,
about it.
I look at this as similar to what, when I was teaching and we did beginning band in summer instrument camp where they would go through and try out the design instruments and figure out who, and you set your class up, or, set the beginning band up based on what you had the kids could do and those kind of things. I think this is a perfect model for beginning kindergarten. I think it would work really well.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to thank Charla for being here, but really our whole kindergarten team needs a lot of praise, because we came to that meeting with this idea of here's what we think, here's what we've looked at, here's what's out there, and our kindergarten teachers were very receptive and are willing to make something like this work in an effort to benefit kids. And so the whole kindergarten team was very much bought in and said, oh, we've kind of been waiting for this.
Yeah, I kind of think that, I could see them saying that this is exactly what they need to
Right.
help get off on the good foot.
And I think as a principal, it's what we need to get off on the right foot, because I think coming into an elementary setting, people would be surprised at how many kindergarten discipline issues we have. And if we can help manipulate that right from the beginning and try to get it right and be proactive about it, I think in the long run it will benefit a lot of people, kids, teachers, principals, parents.
You know,
All right.
I
Do you-
really like this. I think it's a great idea.
Well,
You want
I-
a motion?
I don't know that we need a motion because there's no cost involved. It would really
The
just-
only cost would be busing, and I did talk to Deb about the busing. It really would be that one Monday early release that we would have to run extra route buses that day. In talking to her, she didn't have an exact estimate for me, but it looked like it would be a couple of $100s.
Pretty
I
minimal.
think really all they need is your blessing or your, or not.
Sure. I think one of the things I hope you take away from this is the same kind of questions that Brian was having. I mean, like as a parent of a kindergartner, where, how does it apply to me? And so I think, since we've already had Roundup and stuff,
kids
we've
are
got to
almost
really get that information out. Exactly.
Right.
I mean, whatever means we can do that by, I think is
Absolutely.
important. So,
Okay,
Well,
thank
thanks for all
you.
the hard work.
thank you very much.
Go for it.
I almost want to go to camp kindergarten. All right.
You're
Now-
regressing.
So what we're
Vice
saying is, in the
Madam
words of
President.
P.D. Eastman, go dog go.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I asked one more question.
Oh,
The Burgon's test, is that the only test out there?
No.
no, it
Are we
isn't.
looking into maybe
I did
getting
some
something more
research.
updated?
I did some research last year with Paola, Lewisburg. They all developed their own screening tests that were more comparable to what we do in all-day kindergarten. Because the Burgons is based more on a preschool, coming into half-day kindergarten. The only problem is it wasn't real standardized. So it made it a little bit more,
Gives you a little bit of
More
more
subjective.
yeah, I did a lot of research on it last year, trying, because I personally have not been happy with our screening test because I don't feel like it gives us enough information. But I don't know what all's out there, I don't know what the cost is, and I didn't go into all of that, but
Dr. Kraus, is that something we could partner with KU or one of our educational in Boyer State, have a
Have them
senior
develop a
research
new
project
screening
to
instrument.
develop this new screening tool for one of our
We can
future
ask 'em.
doctorate degree people?
I don't know, 'cause
Get
if
free
it's
help.
outdated, then we need to do something different.
Because we want to make you happy.
it just doesn't fit where our kids are now. It doesn't,
Yeah.
we're expecting more out of them, we need to know more upfront as well, and other than just
As an example, like, can you hop on one foot? Well,
I can't hop on one foot.
That's worth 10 points.
It's
Just
worth
the
a
gross
lot.
motor skills are worth 10 out of 100. I mean,
and that doesn't tell you whether you can sit in a chair or line up in order or share a toy with another student
I can't do any of those.
or say your
there's no
ABCs.
shape
It just doesn't.
There's no, I mean, there's just a lot of like basic skills.
Okay.
Well, we need to research that and find out. something
All
about
right. Maybe before we go on to 6.04, which was the E-2020 thing, should we take a 5-minute break? Use the restroom and
Yes.
for those of us who don't have a drink, get a drink.
Is there a resolution that has to be read for
The
bathroom?
request came from this way. According to KSB, I can ask for a break at any time, believe it or not. I obviously don't use that very often.
That's easy to
Okay,
remember.
oops, Amy's not there. Yep, she's there. Could you open the attachment?
below the step.
E2020 is really no longer E2020. As you can see on the top line, it's changed to Edgenuity. It's the same company, different name, and we use them for our curriculum, for our virtual school, for OLC, and for credit recovery also, I believe. Is that correct, Dr. Cobbs?
Can we get a discount for them changing to a dumb name?
They
No,
didn't-
no discount for the name change. I was
checker.
going to ask you tonight to decide on, if you'll scroll down, Amy. This, I just cut and pasted this from an email. What you need to see, and go on a little higher, so you can see all the yellow. There we go. There's a price structure. If we want 1 year and we say, no, we don't want to be tied beyond 1 year, it's $35,000 per year. If we say we're going to make a 3-year commitment, but we only want to pay each year, it's $30,000 each year, which would be a total of $90,000 over 3. Or we can say, yeah, we'll take the 3-year commitment and we're willing to pay you up front, would be $75,000 in 1 year. I was going to ask you to act on this, but we got our internet bill was significantly higher than we had anticipated, so I would like to table this until a little closer to closing out the books. If we have sufficient money, obviously the fiscally sound thing to do would be to do all 3 years up front, if we can do it without having to cut something else. But we're not close enough to the end of the year to know our final budgets. So as we get a little closer, I'll either be making a recommendation to do 75,000 up front for 3 years so we can save the 15. Or if our ending balances won't allow it, then we would probably go with the 30,000. Everybody that I've talked to likes the E2020. We anticipate using it long-term for our virtual school and for OLC. So I don't think the 35,000 with no commitment is in our best interest.
Have you had any contact with E2020 and letting them know that we're planning to renew, just we're trying to figure out what level we want to go with?
Right. Our contract, I believe, starts July 1st. So, I mean, we've got time to do this. Before we got our internet bill, we thought there'd be plenty of money to do this 75.
How big was it?
61,000, is that what you said?
61, 62,000.
Is that the I'm mad at you AT&T bill?
Yes. Yes, that's.
Can we sue them?
That's the, we're mad that you dropped us bill.
Yeah.
I guess we are gonna stick with him and think for 3 years. The only thing I would suggest, since I did some quick math, we're looking at the possibility of, if we pay the 75,000, we're only gonna, if we pay it up front, if we put that money in the bank, that would be $1,500 of interest over the 3 years, but we can save $15,000. If we can do it, it's better to pay the 75,000 because we're not making nothing on our money in the bank.
Right.
So I don't know if we could taken out an advancement from a bucket for next year to this year. I just hate to see losing a $15,000 discount
And
when
I-
we're not making any money on our general fund
Right.
money sitting in the bank.
And I anticipate that we will opt to go that way, but we just wanted to wait till a little closer and see what our cash balance is.
Could we republish the budget so we could actually take care of a $15,000 savings? I'm just,
You'll be sleeping on the couch.
oh, sorry. I just want to say, you're not making that much on interest.
If we can take it out of textbook, and there's just some things that we need to check out, but I think we'll be able to do it.
If we save the
I had a
15,
panic attack when I saw the $62,000 internet bill today.
Yeah.
okay, well, and if we save 15,000, we can do in the after-school program. Just saying, that's all good. Use
So
some-
if you're okay with it, I'd like to table this and bring it back later.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Should we
It
make
is.
a motion pending the decision on the fiscal wealth to give you that opportunity clear through the end?
I don't know that it's necessary. You can if you want.
No, let's just wait and do it later.
All right, moving on to section 6.05. Graciously, they have provided us all the handbooks,
I read them all.
and I did too.
They look good.
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah,
did, and they
Didn't
put
read
red
them all.
marks
The
where they
gracious part was
changed
giving you
it.
just single change sheets.
Yeah,
So it was
well,
very
and
nice of you,
some of
Doc.
them put some, put red
Some
marks
big
on them.
changes
And what is it with the high school and backpacks? You don't like backpacks? Everybody has one, don't they?
They put bombs in them.
I don't know that we don't have rules
It,
against that.
yeah, it discourages it.
It discourages it. We don't want kids walking around with a 30-pound backpack. Yes,
Yeah.
we discourage backpacks, but we don't
Oh,
have the
okay.
rules that says they can't have that.
Can't
You don't,
have
you
them.
discourage back injury backpacks.
Yes.
You can put bombs in them.
That's
We
exactly.
discourage a lot of things.
Then
Our
teach them
classrooms
the
are as
proper
small as they
wear
are.
and fitting of a backpack.
Our classrooms are as small as they are. and we-
Jeez.
25 kids rolling with a backpack and sit on the floor, it creates some limitations for us. So,
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah,
we
we
would
were
like
down there.
kids to use bombs.
I know.
That's gonna be your specialty there, Brian.
Yeah.
I think our
Okay.
folks are prepared to, if you have specific questions, to address them in the interest of time, unless you want to go through the changes of each individual handbook. I
No.
don't think we can.
No, let's have a motion. Can we have a motion, to accept them all?
Administrative.
Yeah, me too.
I move that we accept the changes to the handbooks as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Bill, seconded by Brian. All in favor, raise your right hand.
I got it.
7-0.
I'll have you know, Ryan, I read them all this weekend.
I really did too.
Madam President, I move that we approve the amended budget as presented in the hearing earlier this evening.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dennis, seconded by Bill to adopt the amended budget. All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
I'm just gonna suggest in the future that we vote with our left hand, because this is my mouse hand.
Okay.
August, we
Usually-
always vote in
August
with
is
the left hand because that's
left-handed voting
left-handers month.
Traditionally.
It'd just be easier.
Could be
I mean,
August
The
somewhere.
only thing I'm doing is resting my chin.
How about if we just raise a hand?
Yeah,
You
can we
can
just
raise
raise
a
a
hand, I
hand?
don't
What's
care.
wrong with raising a hand?
That's all right. As long as you're
Madam
not
President,
gesturing.
I move on 6.07 KSB dues to approve their 6% increase and take advantage of all the freebies that they're including with that
Second.
increase.
All right, motion by Dennis, seconded by Brandon. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand, left hand, it doesn't matter. 7-0.
The
I
hokey
move
pokey.
to approve the legal assistance fund on 6.08.
Second.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
good.
who is seconding? Brian, okay, so motion by Brandon, second by Brian. All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0.
We got
All
to do
right.
that without any lawyer jokes.
I know, we did, because
Would you like a lawyer joke?
Yeah.
it was free legal
Well, I did it
assistance.
fast.
There's this lawyer and this Methodist minister. No, never mind.
Never mind.
Oh,
All right, section 7, negotiations. Do we need
Long
a thing?
gentleman.
Do we need a,
Or do you need one? You gave us the report.
I don't know that we have anything additional to discuss. Yeah, maybe just a minute worth, like
5 minutes?
10 at the most.
Just to walk there and back.
Okay, let's take 10 minutes.
Just to
One
walk.
thing
Therapy
we want
session?
to discuss.
therapy
therapy
session?
session? Is
Therapy session, yeah, that'd be good. Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing matters relating to employer-employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representative or representatives of the body, and that the board return to open meeting at 9 o'clock in this room. Executive session is required to protect the district's right of confidentiality of its negotiating position and the public interest.
And to invite Dr. Kraus.
By Dr. Kraus.
Okay, all right, 7-0.
So moved. Second.
All right,
Not friendly to the gay.
Brian.
Does not have a rainbow flag in his house.
Moved by Brian. Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand.
What, are we coming back in? Is that what we're voting?
We're gonna go back in, we're gonna go into executive session for personnel. Oh, my.
Let's say
15 minutes, 20 minutes, let's make 20 to be sure.
20 minutes. Madam President, I move the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personal matters for non-elected personnel. That the board return to open meeting at 9:20 o'clock in this room. The executive session is required to protect the privacy interest of an identifiable individual. And we'll have Dr. Kraus in there for a little while.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
March never rose her hand.
Oh, you did it?
time, Susan, did you say?
9:20.
9:20.
Yep. Did you need this signed?
Yes, sometime before you
Okay.
leave.
Oh, no, everything's all functional. No, my cast iron pipes that drain my garage, that goes into the floor, there's kind of collapsed between. You know, how they're gonna bring these,
Oh, and I
well,
did.
unless we can go in.
Speaking of board tariffs, the new seats, do you does everybody understand that? New seat people. Or camera.
Yeah.
If they can't be a part of it?
Road router's not gonna tell me if it's leaking.
No, but you know what I mean,
Okay.
let it open.
Teresa, you let Tim
Because it comes through the wall
to know that they
and then
cannot
curves
be part
down
of
and it
the,
goes through the septics.
Gotcha.
like,
Linda, yeah, well, I told her.
Madam Chair, I move that we go back into open session.
Second.
Yes.
Okay, motion by Dennis, seconded by Brian. All in favor, raise your right hand, or whatever hand.
Hands up.
7-0. Personnel, staff list. Let's see. I haven't had a chance to see this one.
I have. Did you?
I move that we approve the personnel report as presented.
No, I'm trying to open it.
Right. Motion by Dennis to approve the personnel list.
Where,
Do I have a
what were
second?
this nurse that we're hiring, where will she be?
She will be at halftime at Garfield, halftime at Lincoln.
Okay.
Where was she be? That wasn't on that list. Garfield and what?
Garfield and Lincoln, half day each.
Okay. And is Mr. Hedrick, is he certified for elementary also? Oh.
Yes, he is. He's got a K-12 PE.
So you'll have trouble with sped all around, won't you?
There it goes.
It's too bad.
What do we have, a motion and a second? You already done both of those?
Did we get no, we never got a second.
Nobody seconded
What
it.
was the second for?
I'll second it. Two.
Okay. To approve the personnel list.
Oh,
I was waiting. All right.
I was trying to
Any
open it.
discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All right. 7-0. Announcements.
Tomorrow.
Eggs and Issues tomorrow with Derek. Tickets available. Talk to Dr. Kraus.
30 at the hospital, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Are any of you planning?
General.
I will not be there.
Yeah, I'm going.
I can't.
Let's go.
Yep.
Anyone else?
I can't.
I'm going to Newton. Then we'll
Teresa,
get
do we have any tickets?
Tomorrow I'll be eating
Nope.
That's all
breakfast
right.
at-
They'll let me in. They
Can
know
we
me.
Will they let me in if I can?
Yeah, you're providing the food. They'll let you in.
Okay. One other quick announcement, just so you know, I talked to Mike Norris also about the issue of the new people that are elected. And in terms of being involved in the interview process and things, and he said that he would highly, as a matter of fact, he adamantly, is how he put it, would recommend not having that occur just because of they're not bound by the same executive session rules, and they're also not protected by the insurance.
Dr. Major said that I could just treat it as a special meeting and have you sign a waiver, all of you, so you could be together, and that would eliminate
Sure.
anybody coming in too.
Yeah, so just so you're aware, that was the recommendation from Mike also.
And do you think that room will seat?
Whether we
Well, I
adjourn?
thought about
All right.
Jean's office, it would be bigger. Not-
Second?
Yeah, it would be better than that.
Can we do
Doing
that?
where?
Yeah,
That'd be
he's
great.
got a bigger table in
Yeah.
Is that still going to be comfortable
I've had
enough?
meetings in there and it's pretty tight.
Okay, then let's do that. That's better. There'll be 9 of us
Alright.
at least,
Yeah,
7 board
Moved
members.
by,
and-
yeah.
moved by Brian, seconded by Dennis. All in favor?
Hooty hoo?
I'm just making up whoever seconds. I can make this.